Welcome back, gang. It's Deltia from Deltiasgaming.com, and the Elder Scrolls Online just released 7.1, which is the new DLC coming to the public test server today. Patch notes. I'm here to tell you what I think are the most important changes upcoming and what you can expect. So first things first, this is a new DLC that will be launching later this year, obviously, usually 3 months from the last update. So we had Blackwood in June. What it's adding is 2 new 4-player dungeons, Red Petal Bastion and the Dread Cellar. See previous video on that if you're interested in learning more about those. Your typical bells and whistles, several added new collectibles, item sets, achievements, and titles. So great. And they introduced 3 new rewards of the worthy items. Each are really good. So fantastic changes here. Keep in mind, this is subject to change. This is not final, and this is for testing. So let's jump in here and talk about this. 2 new dungeons, Red Petal Bastion and the Dread Cellar. We've got a little sneak peek of some of the gear sets, but just in case you haven't seen it, you're going to have the normal veteran hard mode dungeons with achievements, trifecta, titles, and so on. So we scroll down here. Orion's Feast. When you deal damage with fully charged heavy attack, you gain this aura. Basically, you do 2 fully charged heavy attacks and you get a couple of buffs. Rush Agony. This is an interesting set that focuses on blink, charge, leaps, teleports. Then we have a tank set, so your typical light, medium, heavy. This just reduces armor by nearby enemies, so about 3,500 or so that's pretty good. Then we got a new set. One Piece adds a bunch of recovery, so most people are going to want it just for that if you want a One Piece for recovery. Basically, too long didn't read version of this. You can get minor courage and minor resolve, which is quite useful. As a tank, I usually provide minor courage via a tank set. So healing someone with a single target ability will grant this, and it'll apply to 3 other players. So kind of a 4-player buff, if you will, kind of be useful. Maybe niche, maybe not best in the slot, but something worth acquiring, especially for the One Piece. Now the Red Petal Bastion, this Thunder's Caller does a lot of damage with fully charged heavy attacks. You notice there's nothing here, so we don't know exactly how much damage yet until the thing goes live. And then we have the funny one, which is dealing light attack grants you these stacks of Baker's Delight. And you gain 3 stacks. You get Sweet Roll, not Sweet Troll, next to your target. You and your ally touches the Sweet Troll roll. Both you and your allies gain one of the following effects: restoring resources and power or major force. This thing looks really strong. I think it will be really worth collecting. Then we have another tanky set. So blocking applies these stacks, you blow out magic damage, and apply major maim. Monster Helm here, I think it's going to be really good. Dealing direct damage with an AoE creates this area around them for 7 seconds, and they're going to take more AoE damage. That could be really good set. So PvP changes. They're basically turning on no procs and no CP Cyrodiil and Imperial City campaigns. So they're going to limit the procs. If you didn't know, here was the previous sets that you could use for no proc campaigns. Now what they're doing is adding some more in here. As you can see from this list, there's a bunch of them. I'm not going to read them, go over all of them. And then also, the following sets will be added and will be included with Update 31. So a lot of different stuff here that was not in previous one. Black Rose, Old School Meta, Blessing of Potato, so on and so forth. So I'll link in the description if you want to check out every single one that's going to be added. Lastly, you'll note here, additionally, we'll be disabling Bowl Drum in the no CP, no proc campaign. So what does this mean, and what's my opinion? I think it's just going to be a dead campaign, to be honest with you. I like no procs, and I like that and no CP, but I can't see a whole lot of people playing that, especially without the Voldrum. I could be completely wrong. Play on both servers, PCNA and PCEU, and PCEU's main server is the no CP PvP one. So it'll be fascinating to see what this really does for the PCEU crowd or anyone that enjoys those no CP campaigns. And the reason I play CP most of the time, it's just busier. It's just more populated. It's an interesting change, but at least you'll have the option to play in those areas if you like that playstyle. Now the juicy information. Rewards of the Worthy added 3 new sets. Each of them are fantastic. Some of them are kind of hard to explain, but the first 2 are really meant to be a Zerg busters, to break up ball groups. So this light one here is going to suck them in. After 4 seconds, the area is going to deal magic damage to all enemies, and magic enemies within 3 meters of the center, increasing the damage by 10% for each target. So you read the spoiler here. This set was designed with one goal in mind: kill large groups. So we already have Vicious Death, but this will be another tool at our disposal. What I think is better is the Plague Breaker set. This is medium armor, so dealing direct damage to an enemy turns them into a Plague Carrier. This is fascinating. If the Plague is removed early, aka someone just sitting there spamming Purge because they have a person in their group that's just doing a Purge bot, it explodes, infecting enemies within 8 meters of the carrier, dealing disease damage. And the explosion deals an additional 10% per enemy hit. So really an awesome way to break up big ball groups for stamina users. And we're going to see how this actually works, but you're going to have to cognitively think, oh, should I purge now or should I purge later? Especially this one might actually be good with magpars like me using Extended Ritual constantly. Now I'm going to have to cognitively think, looking at my animations or my buffs, should I purge? Great change. Then we have another one here for the heavy. Stunning or immobilizing your enemy causes them to burst with frost, essentially dealing 26% of their total physical and spell resistance as frost damage to themselves and enemies within 8 meters. Incur every 7 seconds. I think this would be really cool to pair with a Warden, maybe a Mag Warden high health HP tank. It could be a really good set in PvP. Those sets are interesting. They're adding some new unique tools to break up the ball groups because it's obvious that we're tired of that in Cyrodiil. Next up is the combat and abilities. I'm going to highlight some of the most important. Number 1 is increase the damage taken reduction from the Battle Spirit passive to 55%, up from 44%. Too long didn't read, people are just going to be tankier. There's already a lot of people playing tanky builds, and you probably have to do that because all the bombers out there, I'm just one-shotting you. So people are going to be a little bit more tanky. I imagine they did this that way people aren't getting frustrated and getting one-shot and just, you know, nuked without any way to respawn. My personal opinion, 10% seems a bit high. You don't want to get too much, but you know, it's a starting point. Remember, this is on testing, so maybe they can dial it back to 5 or 7 and find that sweet spot. But it's an interesting change. Now, you're going to love this if you love the hybrid builds and you constantly ask me about hybrid builds because they changed a gazillion passives to now basically give you weapon and spell damage. The big one here is agility. Now grants equal weapon and spell damage. You know me from previous proc videos complaining about the agility passive, which gives you weapon damage. Well, you can essentially now wear medium armor as a magic user and get spell damage, so it's equal amounts. Balanced Warrior from the Templar now grants armor rather than spell resistance, so they kind of standardized that as well. They standardized a bunch of them, so now granting equal offensive penetration, increasing crit damage and healing done. So they kind of made it so you could spec really well as a hybrid and get weapon or spell damage, whatever you wanted to focus on. We get to the big one, Templar. You know I love my Templar and I love it. So Dawn's Wrath Backlash. For those that don't know, Power of Light, Purifying Light. I use these all the time in PvE and PvP. This ability is morph now retain 50% of the damage you deal to the target, up from 20 to help more reliable in PvP encounters. It's a huge jump. This thing hits like a truck already. So that's a massive jump. We'll have to see what this looks like because it also scales off of weapon and spell damage instead of max magic and stamina. So I would use things like Hulking Draugr on stamina builds or Crafted Alfix or whatever it's called on magic build to get this magic so high that when this thing blew up, Purifying Light, it would just nuke people. You're going to have to stack weapon or spell damage if you want it versus max stats. And I think this thing is going to be a game changer single target. It's going to bury people. One of the most underrated abilities for stam users, especially for those that need healing, is Bloodthirst from Dual Wield. And they changed this so now it will heal for 33% of the damage done rather than the final hit. So this is going to be able to be a lot more responsive. It's going to be like a channel that you're actually going to heal throughout each tick. And it's going to be very useful if you don't have Pale Order or you lack survivability in a stam build. Think about it. I love, love, love this skill from Dual Wield. There's some other adjustments to Destruction and Resto staff as well. Major Mending from Essence Strain, Absorb, got a little bit of bump in Resource Sustain and so on. Two-hander got changed. A lot of you love the two-hander and the brawler type playstyle. Well, the other morph wasn't that effective. Cleave. This ability and Carve morph now apply a damage shield, both of them. So when you're cast equal to the scaling coefficient of the initial hit. I'm not a math guy. I have no idea what that means. But what I do know is the cost went up. And the way it's going to hit in a 5-meter radius rather than a 7 isn't pretty impactful. So it's going to do a 300-degree arc rather than 140, but a reduction of 2 meters. So that's quite interesting. So Brawler, this morph increases the base size of the morph's damage shield by approximately 7%. And Carve, the bleed from this morph can now stack up to 3 times. So you can basically spam the bleed over and over. And really what they wanted to do is make you have a good choice, a hard choice. Do I do Brawler or Carve? Because Brawler is just so powerful right now. Time to get out those Master 2Hs and start brawling or carving. For you gankers, I'm sorry, but we needed a counter for you, and they made a big counter. So Fighters Guild, Expert Hunter, and along with Expert Hunter, Mage Light follows the kind of same arc. So what this does is, this ability, Camo Hunter, now reveals hidden enemies 8 meters from you, up from 6. That's massive. You need a bigger radius. Now the ability is going to do check for hidden enemies every 500 milliseconds instead of a second. It's going to be a lot more responsive and constantly check versus one check, they get out of the 6 meters and they're hard to find. So you're going to get more meters, more checks. And then the Morph Evil Hunter will also increase the radius of the reveal by 12 meters. Very hard counter for gankers on stand builds. Mage Light from Mage's Guild will follow the same thing that Camo Hunter does. So you got 2 more meters on it, up from 6 to 8. You have 500 millisecond checking, and you have 1 extra second preventing them from going back into stealth, making a very hard counter for stealthers. Speaking of hard counters, Alliance War Assault Magic Detonation reduces the base damage of this ability and its morph by approximately 60%, but increase the scaling per target to 100%, up from 25. This ability will now deal less damage than normal area effect spammables until it hits 3 or more targets. This is fantastic. I've been killed solo by proxy jet bombers. It's not the way it's intended to go. It's not supposed to hit you for 8 or 9k with high mitigation. On a single person, me, by myself. So I think this is fantastic. It should hit like a truck the more people are around, hence breaking up the ball groups. This will be very, very good change in my opinion, because no one likes getting solo bombed unless you're the person doing it. Another massive change I don't think people are understanding is Revealing Flare. So this ability is morph now prevents stealth from 4 seconds. Okay, great. This ability in its morphs now passively grants major protection while slotted. That's massive. So major and minor protection. You can put undo back on your back bar ultimate for minor protection if your class kit doesn't have it. That's from Sigic's Order skill line. Now you put this ability, while it's probably kind of like a dead slot, you'll have major and minor protection on your back bar. That's pretty powerful. We'll see if it sticks, but unless I'm missing something, this is a pretty big change. They add some more champion point constellations, which I think is going to be much, much needed. Fitness tree, so Wind Chaser, increased movement speed, Thrill of the Hunt when you kill an enemy, gain major expedition, refreshing stride. This one I think is going to be really good. You gain 100 health and magic recovery per stage while sprinting. Survivor's Spite, so this is pushing back and fighting against the odds, increases your recovery across the board while you're affected by negative status effect. Reduces damage taken up to 20% for different negative status effects, and gain major protection for 3 seconds after being stunned or feared. So this relentlessness here, gain major protection for 3 seconds after being stunned or feared. This could be really useful if you break free from a Dawnbreaker and you're just going to prevent you from dying. So for new players that might not react very fast or kind of be flustered, that's a good one. Blocking Fortress, Bracing Anchor, increase block mitigation by 4%, but lowers your movement speed. Well, for a lot of us, that doesn't matter as a tank, as long as we're just can drop our block and move. So I like that one. Ward Master, reduce your damage taken while blocking with the damage shield. Soothing Shield, when you successfully block attack, you have a chance to restore health per stage. So I'm not big on the health because usually I can out heal stuff, but I do like the block mitigation one. Ironclad, Return. Ironclad, the champion point makes return slottable, reducing damage taken from direct damage attacks. So a bunch of more tanky stuff that we can basically have to prevent us from dying. Perennial's Aptitude, it's now Perennial's Wrath, and I'm sure I'm saying it wrong, but this is kind of high risk, high reward. So this set now grants you a damage shield based on your weapon or spell damage, and a stack of Wraith of Whitestrake for 10 seconds whenever you kill an enemy. Essentially, you're going to kill people, but you're going to take more damage. So high risk, high reward set. And, you know, I don't know how this is going to work. Maybe people are going to run it. It's going to be busted, really powerful. But what just comes to mind real quick is if you had the hammer. If you had the hammer, the Voldrum, and you're running around Cyrodiil and you pick it up and just kill a stack of 10 people, it'd be pretty nasty. So there's a whole bunch of other changes and so on and so forth. What do I think about this? I think it's a lot of balance geared towards PvP, ganking, getting blown up, removing the ball groups. I don't know how much this is going to affect PvE. The 2 new dungeons for me, I love 4-player content in Elder Scrolls Online. I love the fact that they have all sorts of new rewards for trifecta runs, doing those dungeons, incentivizing gear, especially incentivizing those rewards of the worthy 3 new gear sets. I mean, I gotta tell you, for a DLC, especially if you like PvP, trying to balance it, yeah, people will probably be tanky at first, more tanky. But remember, this game is probably geared towards the newer player, and no one wants to start up Elder Scrolls Online, do PvP, and get one shot from stealth. It's just not fun. We'll have to see and play around with it. I'll be streaming it live on Twitch TV/Deltiasgaming, especially those 2 new dungeons as a tank. Can't wait to revive my T3 build, get in those dungeons, and see if we can't get some trifectas. Thanks for watching.